Hello, my friends. Let's talk about some Christian nonfiction books that I would recommend. I have a long list of books on my unread shelf that I really need to get to, but I'm going to talk to you about some of my favorites, and maybe this will spur me on to get into reading some more to find some more favorites. So, I'm going to start with a few that I don't own first. I'm going to start with God Has a Name by John Mark Comer. This was a book. I'm not going to go too in depth with each book. I'm just going to give you a brief idea, but I ended up reading this book in a really dark time, and God met me through the book, and he was able to speak to me and walk me through that dark time a little bit. So I really love this book. Funnily enough, another one by John Mark Comer is The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. This was a really, really good book as well. So yeah, just about the hustle and bustle of life and how that isn't doing us any favors when it comes to our relationship with Christ. And that's the most important, because in order to reach the unsaved, we need to have that strong relationship with God ourselves. So the rat race, as it were, of society is going against us. And then the last one that I don't own is You're Not Enough, and That's Okay by Allie Beth Stuckey. So the subtitle for this one is Escaping the Toxic Culture of Self-Love. So this was a really great one in terms of like taking an opposite approach to the self-love movement that's going on in the world right now, where, you don't put yourself first. The self-care is a bit of a touchy one because there is some healthy elements of self-care, but this book is just kind of approaching it as, you don't put yourself first. That's all it is. That's all it comes down to, is yourself does not come first. So yeah, I really like that one as well. So I'm going to start with my favorite shelf. You guys know this shelf by now. This shelf should basically be like a personality on my channel. So I'm going to start with Battlefield of the Mind. This one I think I might take off of my favorite shelf just because of the questionable content that Joyce Meyer has been releasing as of the last number of years. So yes, I read a book recently from her and there were some red flags. So I read this one like decades ago. I don't know if maybe her theology has changed over the years and this book is great, or if maybe I just wasn't as discerning when I was reading this book back then. So I do need to do a reread of this, but I will say that I loved this book at the time, and it is all about thoughts and kind of just analyzing. It's funny to say analyzing because it's about our tendency to analyze and the things that pop into our head. And yeah, there is a whole battle going on in the spirit world regarding our minds, and we need to be constantly renewed in our minds by the Lord. So that's kind of like what this one's about. A couple of the other ones that aren't on my favorite shelf but do deserve a brief mention are Through the Eyes of a Lion by Levi Lesko. This is basically his journey through losing his daughter through a sudden allergic reaction that they did not see coming, and it happened around Christmas time, so this is kind of his journey there. None Like Him by Jen Wilkin. I just love this one. So this is 10 ways God is different from us. So just looking at the attributes of God. Nearing Home by Billy Graham. I've talked about this one a few times. This one is essentially looking at our life after we are in retirement age. We're talking about being a senior in society. What do we do with our time, our life, when we are that age and in that phase of life? I'm not in that phase of life, but I did find this very, very good. Let's jump back to our favorite shelf. The Five Love Languages. I have not read this one in a hot minute, many years, but I really appreciated it at the time, and I did find that it was very valuable to look at the 5 different aspects that Gary Chapman has kind of come up with in terms of how we love other people and how we feel love by other people. So it's kind of looking at that, even though you show your love some way to person A doesn't really feel loved by you. And it's that conflict because, well, I'm showing love, you don't feel love, what's going on? It's because that person feels love a different way. So in order to show that person that you love them, you almost have to try and shift the way you love that specific person, right? So very, very useful. The Slumber of Christianity by Ted Dekker. Honestly, it says awakening a passion for heaven on earth. I loved this book at the time when I read it, but I really can't remember anything about it now. So maybe that means I shouldn't have it on my favorite shelf. I don't know. Apparently I liked it at the time enough to put it on my favorite shelf, but I just don't remember anything about it. So chime in the comments below if you've read this one. When a Woman Discovers Her Dream. This was a really great book. Very, very practical approach about finding fulfillment in the daily tasks of life and also in pursuing a dream or two, and what that might look like to pursue a dream and to honor the dreams that God has given you, because he has given you them for a reason. So really like this one. It's Not Supposed to Be This Way by Lisa Turkhurst. Again, I don't fully remember this one. I do remember that I loved it. Clearly, it's on the favorite shelf. Finding Unexpected Strength When Disappointments Leave You Shattered, right? So a lot of these books you will see kind of a theme. I had a good almost 2 decades of going through infertility, so it was a very intense struggle that I lived with, a very deep hurt that I was trying to figure out how to navigate. And so a lot of these books kind of take that kind of approach. So that's where this one came in. Anything by Jenny Allen. This was a recommendation from Chantel. Thank you, Chantel. This was a great book. The Prayer That Unlocked My God and My Soul. So again, this one, I don't fully remember like really about it, but I remember that it impacted me quite a bit. So I do want to keep it on my favorite shelf, but I do need to reread it so that I can properly give you guys a recommendation. Like, what is it about? Why did I like it so much? So anyway, I recommend this one. I just can't remember what it was about. Then we have When God Doesn't Fix It by Laura Story. This one really is special to me. Lessons you never wanted to learn, truths you can't live without. So again, it's that concept of going through something really difficult in life, and trying to, you know, live in a God-honoring way and respond to that difficulty with Christ and with a godly approach, and how to still recognize that you are hurting really bad. So I loved this one a lot. Forgotten God by Francis Chan. Reversing our tragic neglect of the Holy Spirit. Again, I don't really remember this one. I do really appreciate Francis Chan's writing. Perhaps this shouldn't be on the favorite shelf. I don't know. But I remember I did love it. It landed here, so let me know in the comments below. Did you read Forgotten God, and what was it about again? You and Me Forever by Francis Chan and Lisa Chan. So this is Marriage in Light of Eternity. While it says Marriage in Light of Eternity, I feel like the whole title and subtitle of this book is a bit misleading, because I feel like singles could glean a lot from this book. I don't really think it's so much marriage, but like relationship based, and how, like, the reason why they're taking the marriage perspective, I suppose, is because of the Christ and the bridegroom of Christ, which is us. So it's that analogy, but that works for everybody. I don't really understand why they honed in on the marriage part of it, but I'm not sure if any of that makes sense. but I do recommend this one. Fervent by Priscilla Shirer. This is a wonderful book about prayer, specifically targeting women. So a women's battle plan for serious, specific, and strategic prayer. This is a book that I feel like you could read over and over and get new things from all the time. I mean, I kind of feel that with all Christian nonfiction. If it's a good book, you could come back to it anytime and still glean more advice and knowledge and stuff. So yeah, about prayer, specifically for women, really, really good. Now You're Speaking My Language by Gary Chapman, a marriage book about communication, honest communication and deeper intimacy for a stronger marriage. Yeah, that's accurate. This is a really, really great book for strengthening that communication with your spouse. These are both Brant Hansen books. Brant Hansen is an incredible author, a super funny radio personality. They have a podcast, him and Sherry, the Brant and Sherry Oddcast. Highly recommend. This is his first book, Unoffendable, How Just One Change Can Make All of Life Better. Yeah, that's super true, actually. So it kind of takes the idea of being offended and offense and righteous anger and calling all of that into question, and kind of boiling down to it's not about you. So yeah, it's a really revolutionary idea, I feel like, because even when you are wronged, it's not about you, which is like, it's a confusing concept to try and embrace, but I love it. And then his other book, Blessed Are the Misfits, is kind of a little bit more personal for him because he is on the spectrum, so he does feel quite different than like neurotypical people, and he does talk a lot about his experiences in that way, but how we're all misfits, you know, and how God has created us and loves us and has offered the way of salvation for us. So we are blessed, even though we are misfits. I love it, so definitely recommend that one. Managing God's Money by Randy Alcorn. This was my favorite read of, like, maybe was it 2022? I don't remember. But, or was it even last year? Can't recall. But this is such a fantastic book. Really putting into perspective your finances, like your physical finances. This isn't really an allegorical title, like it's practical about your money. The money you bring in, what do you do with it? Because it's actually not your money. It's not my money. I love these revolutionary concepts that really bring it home. Like, it's not your money. So what you do with it should just be up to God, and he knows what he's doing with it. Like, if he's asked you to give it away, give it away. Like, it's a difficult concept, don't get me wrong, but I love it. I love it. I love the surrender of it. So, highly recommend this one. And then, of course, Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. This style of book is something that really feeds the soul. And in saying that, I will say also that C.S. Lewis was a theologian. So he does use large words, like very complex ideas, and really dives deep into theology, and you really have to like follow what he's saying in order to understand it. You might need to reread parts of it to fully understand it. You might not even understand it then, but it is a very in-depth dissection of Christianity and what does it mean? How does it interact with the unsaved world? When we are a believer, well, how does that translate to other people? And it's not so much about the personal relationships with other people, but it's just more so about like, what are we believing to the core? What does it break down to? What are the intrinsic truths about what we believe that can't be compromised? Yeah, it's just super in-depth. I really loved my time reading this. I've only read it once. I do need to read it again so that I can actually take notes. I think that would be a really great experience, but I do recommend this book also if you're in a position where you can mentally feel like you can try to digest it, because it is not a fluffy, fun, nice read. Like maybe some of these other ones are a little bit easier on the mind. Like you can still glean a lot of truths and they're very enjoyable, but they're just a little less intense. This one is a bit more intense, but so good. Very, very good. Those are my Christian nonfiction recommendations. Let me know in the comments, based on the Christian nonfiction that I've enjoyed, do you have any further recommendations for me? I would also encourage you to check my bookshelf tour part 3 so that you can see what I have in my nonfiction collection that I have not read yet, and if there's something in there that you really think I would love and that I should prioritize, or maybe you want a buddy read it, let me know. This was a lot of fun talking about Christian nonfiction. I feel like we need to talk more about Christian nonfiction and share that conversation that authors are having in the theology world, in the life application world. Just, you know, how do we live as believers and find encouragement with each other. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see you in whatever comes next. Bye.